Tēnā koutou katoa. As Chair, I welcome you to the Komiti Maori meeting this morning. And can I remind councillors that the public section of this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. The webcast will be archived and made publicly available on council's website within 2 days after each meeting for a period of 3 years. Our purpose is to provide greater access to council debate, decision-making and encouraging openness and transparency. However, council accepts no liability for any individual opinions or statements. This is in accordance with council's live streaming and recording of meetings protocols, which can be viewed on council's website. I also remind all present that local government decision-making affords no protection to councillors, council officers and the public for comments made during meetings that are subsequently challenged in a court of law and determined to be slanderous. Thank you. Councillors, please ensure your videos are turned on, microphones are on when speaking, and you raise your electronic hand if you wish to speak. I will now formally open the hui. And can I pass to you, Te Tari, to open our hui? No mini.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou. Te chairman o te Komiti Māori, me koutou hoki ngā memo o te Komiti Māori, memo o te kaunero toi moana, me ngā kaimahi, me ta hāpori hoki, kei te mea te kia koutou. He karakia poto mō tātou, kei noi tātou. He honore, he krori ki te atua, he mau ngā runga ki te mato te whenua, he whakaaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa amini. Hānga e te atua he ngā kauhau ki roto ki tēnā o mātou. Whakatongi o tō wairu tapu hei a whina, hei toho tohi a mātou mahi. E runga te kaupapa te Komiti Māori e tēnei rā, ko hukarai te hoka tō mātou kai whakaora. Amen.
Kia ora. Thank you, Te Tari. Our apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Stacey Rose. Councillor Neves for group departure at 10:15 a.m. Stuart Crosby is a late arrival at 10:25 a.m. and Chairman Leader for lateness. Can I call for any other apologies? Are there any other apologies? Councillor Thurston?
No, happy to move, Madam Chair.
You move, okay, thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor White, thank you very much. All those in favour, raise your right hand so I can see you all. That's the majority. Thank you, carried. Just moving through the agenda, our public forum, none advised. Our items not on the agenda, none advised. Order of business, no change. Our call for declaration of interest. No hands raised, so we're fine. Thank you. Moving to previous minutes, can I have a mover and seconder to confirm the minutes are true and correct record? Thank you, Councillor Iti. Seconded by Councillor Thurston. All those in favour, raise your right hand. Thank you, carried. We're now going to move straight to our presentations. We do have Pia Bennett online with us. Some of the councillors who are part of the Tone Moana Advisory Group, you may have already seen the presentation. Just bear with us so that the other councillors Pia is able to share with the other councillors that presentation. So Pia, are you there, Pia? I can't see you on the screen.
I'm here.
Have you got your video on, Pia?
Yeah. Coming up.
I can see you now, Pia. Morena.
Morena.
Morena. I'm going to hand the rākau over to you, Pia.
Kia ora. Morena tātou. I'm just got it. I don't want there to be any IT issues this morning. We had a wee glitch last week, and I just want to know if it's wondering if it's going to do the same thing. So I'm going to try to do the full share, playing the actual slideshow. But if it doesn't do that, then I'll have to just revert. And so if I skip, can you see that next one?
Aye.
Vision. Does the slide start with the title vision?
Aye.
Oh, ka pai.
Oh,
Go away. Come back. Morena tātou, aroha mai, I just needed to check that. Ko pia tarahi tōku ingoa, he uri tēnei no te mono o tauranga, Ngāti Rangi nui, Ngāti Rangi, and me te rohe o make tū, o te aroa mai make tū ki Tongariro, Ngāti Mākeno, Ngāti Pikiao, Ngāti Whakauē. I'm going to give a quick kōrero today about where we are at with our wai mahi and our kaupapa that I presented on this time last year actually to Komiti Maori, and just bring you up to speed with what we have achieved and where we're headed to next. So we've got a plan called and our plan is called Ko Waimātou, and that plan is our plan. It's not a plan that had where the focus was around the Npsfem implementation. It was a plan that we identified we needed to just get clarity around what our aspirations and priorities were for our tauranga moana aspirations to do with wai. And so our plan Ko Waimātou Ko Waimātou means descended from wai, we are wai, not who are we. And that the front end of this presentation discusses a little bit or illustrates a little bit of what our plan contains, what it kind of looks like in terms of its format, and then the second part will look at our action plan for Npsfem implementation. So our vision for Ko Waimātou is really about honouring our whakapapa connections to wai, and by extension, I suppose that means it starts with honouring our atua who created our wai. It drops down to trying to honour as much as we possibly can, honouring our tupuna who, were part of that era where they fought quite hard to secure our rights and interests. Some of them may have even died fighting for these things that we're here today trying to look after and protect. Honouring the third level, we're honouring our mokopuna. So, we're always conscious that we're making decisions that are going to affect our moko, and we want to make sure that we're not leaving them with the legacy of paru rivers or, why that can't sustain them and their mokopuna.
Aroha mai, Pia, when the slides aren't moving through.
Aren't they? Bloody hell.
so you go to the share one like last time, Pia, you go to your share screen, and there should be a screen with the actual presentation where you're at now on that, and click on that.
So I have to click on each slide.
No, so there should be, like when you push share screen.
Yeah, that's what I did. Shared screen, and then I shared the PowerPoint screen.
Did you, is there, say, because you've got one on presentation mode, on full screen mode, is there one screen in front of you there that looks like what you should be at in terms of your presentation right now? Click on that, and that might be what we'll see
Right.
next.
Okay.
Yeah.
That one?
If I can help,
Kapai. Oh, sorry.
There we go. Thanks.
Well, we'll see if it...
That's worked, Pia.
Kia ora. Aroha mai. So that's our vision, and to achieve our vision, or while we make advances towards achieving our vision, these principles are the things that we will try and uphold as we do that. So it's all actually comes back still to whakapapa and looking after those connections, re-establishing them if they're absent or lost or weak, and connections is the really important thing, and remedying any disassociations. Excuse me. Oh, there we go. So I've talked about our connections and our whakapapa things. So it really is central to everything that we're doing. And it just so happens that we're fortunate that some of that mahi that we are going to do that's centred around strong whakapapa identity sort of principles does support our response to the Npsfm implementation. Not all of it does, and that's okay, but some of it does, which is helpful. So we submitted an application to Te Manawa Te Wai, the Te Manawa Te Wai Fund, and that application has a big focus on training, uplifting capacity and capability amongst our people, amongst tauranga moana whānau whānui, and that application will help us to achieve those things that we wanted to achieve. So like making sure that our kaitiaki are recognised as the kaitiaki for wai in Aotearoa, but making sure that they are capable of making really good decisions and they understand what a good decision looks like. And also central to that is, to good decision making by our kaitiaki is, we want to train our people to learn how to understand our awa and the language that it speaks to us. Again, it's something that we have lost. We think we've lost. We had a big discussion around te reo te taiao and te reo te wai at one of our wānanga, and it was interesting, and it inspired a whole lot of focus to reviving some of that, or reconnecting with our reo te taiao and the language of our wai. So some of this work you would have, maybe you would recall last year I talked about cultural flow and koiora assessments. So our project is rohe wide, and we've actually missed the start of the low flow season for this low flow season for the cultural flow work. But what we intend, we'll just pick that up next year. It's just a bit of an odd way of doing it, but it doesn't impact the outcomes too much. We've completed an initial literature review that will help for the Npsfm side of things, will help inform the values, attributes and objectives work program, but also it triggered our need to further inquire into some other parts of our histories and our hapu, even, in the hapu whānau level. It helped us to identify who are the knowledge holders in terms of wai, awa, that sort of thing. So that was really helpful exercise to do, and although it generated more work, it's still usable in the now. We have Mataranga Protocols are really important, and we've completed some. What they intend is to be able to protect our mātauranga, but at the same time be able to share that with the process, with the Npsfm process, and also with staff and others who might need to understand it more, or use it for, the regulatory processes that associated with plan changes. In October, I think it was, or early November, we hosted a regional wānanga for the eDNA He Wai Tūwhera program. That was a real success. Our kaitiaki were really interested in that sort of work, the practical, getting out in the field, doing taking some water samples. And these two, kōtero on the screen here, they were rangatahi who we took out into the field with us, one of those sampling missions, and they loved it as well. So it's inspiring, which is part of the big picture too, is inspiring our kaitiaki, or our future kaitiaki. And we're doing a really neat project over at Matakana. It's a groundwater model and visualization tool, and it's a decision-making support tool for Matakana that is, hopefully, it has the intention of aiding their self-managing their water aquifer resources over there. And that's we've had a demo of some of the really early work, and they are thrilled with the capabilities of that tool. We read a conference paper and we presented at a freshwater conference, and more recently we completed a Npsfem implementation action plan, and that's something that this time hasn't allowed, but we're yet to take to staff. Half of them are on this hui today, so this is their first glimpse. Aroha mai koutou. This is your first glimpse at that, I think, and that's our plan for the next 6 months to the end of the this financial year, when we'll have to redo or update the actions in that. And that was quite a mission, because we had to look at Council's freshwater work program and try and fit in where we could. And we haven't finished that, but we're currently formulating our position on Te Manawa Te Wai, being aware that the RPS is probably one of the first cabs off the ramp to where that Te Manawa Te Wai statement will be introduced. So this is just a snapshot of how we've kind of organised ourselves as Tauranga Moana, and how we intend if we're successful with the Te Manawa Te Wai funding, how we will roll out the project in terms of people and hapu and organisation, pretty much. So these top boxes are our kaitiaki, and we've got 5 different areas, plus rohe wahi koawa areas that we call them. We've identified those, and I'll talk a bit more about those later, but those kaitiaki will be supported by hapu project leaders, and each hapu project leader will have more of an active role in the sort of policy development, plan development, evidence gathering work, allowing the kaitiaki to just get on with in the field assessments and in the field mahi. And then, so the core project team are the hapu project leaders and these light blue ones.
Aroha mai pia, we've lost the slides and frozen.
God.
So if we can just move to the slide that you're sitting at. We froze at the Kōwai Mato slide, so yeah.
Can you see that one? It's got 2
You can
pictures
see that
of
now.
Te Oh,
We've got that, yeah. It just doesn't seem to be moving as you're speaking.
Well, this is the slide I'm at, sorry, and it would be really confusing for you to try and understand what I'm on about when you're looking at all this information. Looks like, I understand if you didn't get me. So these top square boxes here, they are our kaitiaki. They'll be supported by the hapu project leaders. There'll be more than 3 for each of the 5 wahi koawa areas. They'll be supported by hapu project leaders in the field, and also to ensure that they're following protocols as far as data entry or data capture, data entry, and data storage, data management sort of things, and uploading that into our central database. The core project team are the hapu project leaders, and these light blue boxes, the project lead, the coordinator, and the kōrehi taiao. The kōrehi taiao is we're very conscious about building our kaitiaki army for the future, and so we hope to bring on some interns. We've made the decision to, regardless of whether we get Te Manawa Te Wai funding, we're going to just make it happen. And this the focus group came about as a result of our needing to get back on track in terms of our relationship with the Regional Council and Npsfem implementation stuff. And so we had a hui with the Regional Council, and as a result of that hui, that was in August, I think, as a result of that hui, we decided a focus group was needed to try and get things to a point where they were back on track. So that focus group consisted of Māori Land Trust representation, hapu, and iwi. There was only 4 of us, and we had an advisor. He's whānau, but we were lucky enough to have Kelly Palmer as part of that group for a little while. So Kelly was instrumental in he was one of the Npsfem writers. So in MFE, when that policy statement was being developed, so he was really handy to have in terms of his knowledge around intent of provisions and that sort of stuff. Must acknowledge Kelly. And the way that we've structured things is that it's not a top-down model. We tried to illustrate that by having all the sort of current governance, current leadership within the iwi and hapu, not sitting on top of our kaitiaki. It's meant to just sort of be an all-inclusive model without anyone feeling like they are being managed by our governance people. And on the side here, we've got flow technicians, we've got science graduates who we will train in the use, train to understand how to do flow gauging work and then also interpret that data to create hydrographs and rating curves and stuff like that, which is quite technical. So there's only a few spots there, and that will be quite intense for them. I'm going to switch my slide again and let me know if it's not changing. So I've switched it. Has it changed?
Aye.
So this is how we've organised ourselves geographically. We've got 5 wāhi ko-awa areas, like I mentioned, and we identified those boundaries, if you want to call it boundaries. We identified the areas based on some of our histories, our traditional narratives, mātauranga pretty much, and everyone's happy with them. Those have sort of been endorsed as the 5 areas, and there's quite a lot. People who work with mātauranga will understand how important the name, the depth of mātauranga that sits just within a name. So those are our areas. That's how we've organised ourselves to be able to achieve things realistically, because of the rohe, the scope of our area being a whole rohe. Change the slide again. Did it change?
Aye.
I'll cover it. So this is just a snapshot of what our plan, some of the content of our plan looks like. This is for the northern part of our rohe, whānau a Taufau, Ngāti Te Wai, Tamawhariua, and part Piriraka, I think. And they identified these are their, in no order and in no real geographical sort of reference, these are their priorities and their aspirations for their wai and their rohe in that ko-awa area. And then within the plan itself too, we also use statements or views or quotes from our whānau or other places along the way. So this one about our belief system and the interconnectedness, that's just an example of something that will be sitting in our plan somewhere. Gosh, I can't even see this. These are our priority projects put into some kind of theme and order, and these are sitting ko Waimātou, but obviously you'll see things in there that will that are associated with or are helpful to responding to the Npsfem stuff, and also just tauranga moana centric ideas and preferences. And again, Te Manawa o Te Wai funding will help us to achieve some of this, so we're hopeful that we do get some. That's all that was. So our action plan, this is the second part of the presentation, just as some background. Now our action plan was written mainly by Kelly Palmer, so I'm only the waha today for this part of it. Kelly did some, he's very good at this sort of stuff, and he's very fast at it too. So he did this. I acknowledge Kelly's, this is his mahi, and I might not be as good at he is at presenting it either. So we had the meeting in August, and that was more of a having a bit of an event really between us and the regional council guys, and then as a result of that we established the focus group, the focus group then met with a regional council focus group, and that was really helpful because council pulled in, I think it was Kataraina and James, they pulled in people who they, the whole, across the whole of council, the departments who they thought had a role to play in the way forward, and that was really helpful. So then we made some sort of in principle agreements as a result of that hui, and then we had a more of a very refined focused hui with a couple of the water policy guys to work out some priority work streams that we could take away and align with the councils. And as a result, we did this action plan. Kelly did. When we took our kōrero to our whānau for this action plan, which has been endorsed by our whānau, they, the whole way along this, for the last 2 years, they have always raised other water-related kaupapa when we're trying to nail or trying to stay focused on Npsfem outputs. So we have made it as clear as we possibly could to our whānau that this kaupapa is Npsfem. It isn't about anything else water related. It's not about three waters. It's not about wastewater. It's not about network and infrastructure. It's really about Npsfem, and we had to emphasise that over and over again. One of the tricky things about having to go through this process, these processes, they're all the same, is that there's a conflict between how tangata whenua view a plan, or how the scope of and the term of our planning, Māori, how we see things, has to fit in or has to sit somewhere alongside a plan with with its foresight of only 10 years. So I'm just giving the RPS and the regional plan timeframes or lifespan as an example of how difficult that can be when we're thinking 100-year plan, but we're actually having to deal with, in a real world sense, with a 10-year plan, and then a 3-year triennial election type political rollover period. That's really quite difficult, and we've found as one of the barriers or one of the challenges. And then we've got a freshwater context with all these other things trying to fit in somewhere along the way, and we find it really difficult to keep our focus on what we need to maintain it where it should be. It's our people find that hard. And then you've got the RMA reform just to make things, just to put the icing on the cake. So this is just a sort of exercise I did for myself, really, to see what are the differences between the regulatory and the iwi and hapu sort of way of understanding or way of planning. And everyone would know that we're thinking intergenerational. Our whānau said they want a 100-year plan. They want our water plan to be a 100-year plan. And when we look at the regulatory context, it's triennial, and that's based around that political election cycle, and then you've got the 10-year planning framework cycles. So there's this disjunct there. We tautoko in principle that idea around planning with a view to mountains to sea, a whole of catchment integration and all of that. But for Tauranga Moana, we are concerned that if we're not getting the bottom of the sink right, which is at the Moana end, or we're leaving that till last, if we follow strictly mountains to sea approach, we might be, it might not achieve what we need it to achieve. So, but if we were to take a Moana ki te maunga, or ki ngā kāhui maunga approach, where we're dealing with the bottom of the sink first and working our way backwards, we think there's some merit in looking at that approach. The drivers are, a lot of the time, regional council just have to implement something that the central government have promulgated, and that can be difficult for all of us, not just, difficult for the council because it's almost a forced obligation. That's what I mean when I say forced. And whereas for us, our drivers are purely because we have a responsibility to our whakapapa, we have a responsibility as Māori to look after something or to take some sort of action. One of the things we've learnt along the way is that the National Objectives Framework, there seems to be a big focus on mahinga kai, and we think it's wider than that. We know it is. We know that mahinga kai is definitely one of the, is it mandatory, the word they use? Mandatory parts of the NOF, but it's just a starting point to us, and we think there's a whole heap of really neat stuff that would be missed if we didn't maintain a wider focus. And I think the way to sum all of that up is that we just have different rulers, and neither ruler is invalid, but we actually need to recognise that we have different rulers which produce different measures and measure differently, obviously. So this is our phasing to implementation. So from now, this is where we're at. In the first column, this is where we're at. We're going to be focusing our attention on engaging with our people, formulating that te mana o te wai position, pulling together our values, objectives and attributes for the spread of provision development needed, and fulfilling those kaupapa Māori based assessments, and those will be ongoing. And the rest of these slides just really talk about that table in a little bit more detail. These things here we've identified as priorities. We've aligned our timeframes with the regional council's work program timeframes as best as we could. There are some things that are obviously probably not going to get done as well as they should be, or within the times that they should be. But at least we've set some targets. Those kaupapa Māori based assessments are critical to get done because they inform everything else. They inform the values and objectives. They are the mātauranga that will be embedded in policy. You might not see it as mātauranga, but it is embedded within the information sources that we generate. Oh, where are you going? So engaging our people, we're going to be establishing a wider kaitiaki forum. So Ngai Te Rangi Iwi, we've been operating a kaitiaki forum for over 10 years now, and for the Npsfem and why we're going to broaden the scope of that, and see if the whānau are interested in that being broadened, or whether we establish a whole completely new one. I think it would be more efficient to do the prior. One of the things we want everyone to know is that we'll do our work and we'll share it. So we don't want anyone else drafting anything to do with tauranga moana, our rohe, our wai, anything to do kaupapa Māori that hasn't had our eye over it, our input, or our endorsement. We think we're capable of doing everything that the everything that the Npsfem requires for tauranga, for our rohe, and we want to be able to contribute that too. But sometimes there's challenges with doing that because the different rulers is one of those things. The time frames is another, and resourcing and capacity is another. But we want to work. We're really committed to partnership with the councils. And the other thing was that tauranga moana will not accept is people, others speaking for tauranga moana, and their advice being recognised over tauranga moana advice. So that's pretty much it. The rest of these stuff we've kind of covered in the throughout the presentation. what we need to succeed are these things here. The Kaitiaki Forum, we need to have capacity, we need some instruments, we need to be growing our kaitiaki, we need to be working better together. These are things, establishing these roles will be for the next phase. We will need these to be in place for the next financial year's work program in order to be able to deliver what we say we're going to deliver. And that's just the final slide. What we need, and we've already addressed some of these things with the other councils. And so that's me.
Thank you, Pia. Thank you very much. It's my second time, but I learned more things in your presentation again, despite this being my second time. Councillors, I'm going to throw it open for questions. So I can see hands raised. I can see Tataru.
Yeah.
Tataru, I can see your hand. How quick?
Kia ora pia, mo tō whakāturanga tino o tāhua. Thank you for that. It's really a pleasure, and despite the hiccups you had in the actual mechanism and the technology, I mean, it came across really well. I think you've drilled in really deep. There's lots of detail there, and I really, really do congratulate you and your teams on the level of detail, working through a very complex situation, and really at the core of it, you can definitely see, ko wai mātou. That you are the water and the water is you. You're speaking at it from a real deep Maori conceptual Maori tikanga position, and I really love that. And the message that's coming through, and I'll get to my question really, is the notion of your desire of the aspiration, if you can call it that, to work in partnership with the council. And I think that's really, really important. How is that partnership going to be articulated? And I'll put that back on our council as well, as an important discussion to be had and to progress that in a genuine way, because it's so easy to say, but it's not so easy to do, given all the sorts of different views and so on. So on that basis, moving forward, in the context of partnerships, you said you're going to be very open with everything. And of course, you see yourselves as the voice of Tauranga Moana. I certainly have no issues with that space. So in the context of partnership then, what's your I guess your sense of direction moving forward on that you could share with us in terms of the council?
I think there's an obvious inequity with capacity, and that's not council's, that's not council created. That's just how it is. And I think people really, truly don't understand what it's like when you're you're the sole person working in an iwi taiao space. And there's many of us who do that, but to truly understand the burden, you must come over and sit with us for and understand it, like get that learning. So and that without that, I think there's a gap again that sits between us that doesn't help progress things the way we want to. But I still think that's not entirely, well, that's not a council created thing, it's just how it is. One of the earlier goals, and I still have this goal for Tauranga Moana and for Regional Council too. 3 years ago, we talked about, we said to the Regional Council at the time, you know what, we really want to be sitting with you. We want to be sitting on the same side at the appeals stage, defending our plan. We want, and that's taking ownership of our plan and the provisions within it and the content and the way it's structured and all of that. And I don't think we haven't shifted or moved from that goal, but I think that's a goal that the councillors probably understand. Us mātauranga tikanga aside, that's probably a really tangible, clear goal that council and councillors understand quite easily. And I still think we could do that, and I'd love to be able to do that actually, because we've never, you know, that stage of the process is an inequitable one if it gets to the point where we're sitting on opposite sides. It's not to say that we have this false idea that we're going to agree on everything. No, we don't. We know that we won't agree on everything, but that's okay. If we can agree on the, you know, to the extent where we can go in together, sitting on the same side, defending a plan, that's an ultimate goal. And I want to maintain that goal too. Some of the daily ops things, I think it's more of an operational thing where we just don't seem, sometimes you just don't seem to get an answer, or yeah, you spend so much time as a sole iwi, just to use my example, as a sole iwi person, we have to deal with the whole organisation, the whole of council, whereas we don't have we haven't had a single gateway in, which would be, I think would be useful to have a single gateway instead of having to deal with, I mean, each person that you deal with, or each unit, department, you know, imagine the emails that you get from all of the different departments, and you're just the one, you know, you're just one person trying to deal with and do the sort of same work as the council staff, but you're only one. You're working across the whole of council unit.
Ora. Correct me.
Are there any other questions from councillors?
Councillor Clark here. Pia.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah. Are you in any position to comment on how successful you are or have been in collecting the mataranga of your tupuna and making it into a workable plan for today? Could you give us some insight into that, please?
Yeah, I think we've got the right model, and they're models that it's hard to explain. So when we have to do that cultural flow work, because that is where we start to incorporate mātauranga into our planning right at that stage. But that mātauranga will not be, it's not reflected, the way that we identify it and use it at the flow assessment stage will not be reflected in the same way when it gets to a policy. But it is embedded in everything that you've done to build to inform a policy. And also the models that we use, and in some ways we have adapted to suit our tauranga moana environment and conditions and sensitivities. They are models that are well reputed among not just academia, but Māori themselves. So using the Gail Tipper's model for flow, using some of her cultural health index and other koiora models that exist, all of those things have the ingredients, the ingredients of their design, and then the ingredients of implementation in your rohe is where the mātauranga is used and applied, and then the information that it generates, that your assessment might generate, contains might contain new mātauranga, might reinforce old mātauranga. So yeah, it's not easy to explain, but sometimes I think people are waiting to get this book of mātauranga and it's not going to happen like that. But that's where that trust thing needs to come into it. I think you need to trust that actually our processes know how to incorporate, apply and generate mātauranga, but you're not going to see it when it comes to how a policy is written, because it's embedded in it's the foundations of that policy. That's where that mātauranga will be sitting, but not verbatim in a policy.
Kia ora. I mean, I'm pleased to hear you sort of concept of new and evolving Mataranga in the space being affected, the ongoing accumulation of knowledge, not just a reliance on traditional methodology. So that's really reassuring. Yeah, kia ora.
Kia ora.
Thank you, Pia. I just want to take the opportunity again to thank you for the mahi you've done. A question had been raised amongst us as councillors around the work that staff were doing alongside. So I'm going to let Katarina just let councillors know the work that you spoke of with our staff around the mahi that's been contributing to the work that you've been put together as well. But thank you for the presentation. Great work, and keep it up. Good, keep going. Katarina.
O tēnā koe, Pia, tēnā hoki koutou nā kaikaunihira o toi moana. Thank you, Pia. I think just some acknowledgement to Pia working part-time, and also Kelly, who was doing this work remotely for most of it from Wellington. And also at that time we had COVID, we also had a series of tangihanga for the rangatira in Tauranga Moana. So just getting this done through quite a tumultuous time, just, you know, shout out to you, Pia. And for our team at Toi Moana, what's been refreshing is that we've let them do the design, which aligns with our partnerships with Maori Statement and the way that we want to support tangata whenua in this space. So thank you for that. We do have, and we thank the councillors for the long-term plan budget that that council approved for Maitarangi, and that will be factored into this plan in due course. What we needed to do was let Tauranga Moana, through Pia's leadership, design and engage with their rohe and their kaitiaki, and then we're going to be reconvening in the very near future. So kia ora.
Thank you. Now, Pia. Our next presentation, we have Alba Conroy. Alba, I gather you online with us, and Alba is going to speak about the iwi spatial plan that's work in progress at the moment. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over. Welcome to you, Alba, to our meeting this morning.
Morena, kia ora. Morena koutou, ngā kaikaunihira o tō moana. I hope you're all keeping well and dry this morning. Before I get started, I'd just like to acknowledge Pia with the work that she is doing in the freshwater space. She's certainly one of our, well, in my view, one of our key leaders and I guess navigators within the really complex freshwater space. It's complex, it's ever evolving, and I really appreciate the work that she is leading to just keep things moving. And I know for certain a lot of other iwi are watching closely to work out how they might approach things. So kia ora, Pia. Kia ora tātou. I wear many hats, and so for this Komiti Māori presentation, I'm wearing the hat of a tūpākere advisor. So since May this year, both Te Pio Kawe and I came on board as tūpākere advisors to Smart Growth. One of our key roles is to help to support and guide our combined tangata whenua forum members. I guess once again, in navigating through the mega beast known as Smart Growth, it's once again another complex, I guess, form of collaboration, multi-organisational collaboration, and just to make sure our forum members felt comfortable with and that they were able to participate effectively within Smart Growth. The presentation I'll be giving this morning is around iwi spatial planning. It's a new thing for us. We're still in the, I guess, design phase. And I just wanted to give an update on what we're doing and why is probably the main thing. And I guess some of the challenges that you see along the way. The reason for that is also a lot of other iwi are looking at what we're doing too, just to look at the opportunities for themselves around they're doing their own spatial planning to help determine or articulate their future aspirations. I better share my screen, otherwise you'll be looking at me. Here we go. Let me know. No. Let me share. Sorry, I've got multiple screens happening here.
That's fine, Albert.
Sorry. Can you see that? Black.
Aye.
Oh. All right. Let's get rolling. I guess the starting point of what is spatial planning, I mean, no doubt there's many definitions, but I guess just from my experience, it's purely the layering of information so that you can, I guess, make some decisions around what you might want to do or what you won't want to do. And I guess smart growth is probably, a lot of the smart growth strategies to date have utilised this around working out where people are living, where they might want to live, where they're working, where they're learning, and working out the connectivity between all of those areas, I guess around making sure that the development within a city or a sub-region is appropriate and efficient. I guess, and some examples of, I guess, what a layer might look like within the Te Papa Spatial Plan, which came out a year or two ago. This gives an idea of, this was just a work done by tangata whenua, articulating and describing some of the areas of interest. So that provides a bit of historic, I guess not just historic context, but contemporary context of those special places, including par sites, their cultivation areas, puna, and that provides, I guess, some context for this discussions as you start layering additional pieces of information. Something to note that spatial planning is just not necessarily about having a map. I mean, a map is in one of the outputs at the end. Part of it's the analysis that goes with it. So as you're layering all this information, so it's purely an iterative process. And I think this is something that we're mindful of as we're embarking on this iwi spatial or tangata whenua spatial planning process. I guess for a context, I know most of you are familiar with smart growth in a sub-region, but this slide, it really highlights, I guess, the size of the sub-region and some of the pressures across the sub-region, across each of the corridors. And I know the Spatial Planning Act is coming, and I know that in the future will be a lot of the local authorities will be involved in more and more spatial planning, particularly looking ahead in 30 or 50-year horizons. One thing about 2 years ago, or maybe a year ago, there was a strong desire by tangata whenua to start developing their own spatial layers so that they're not just participating in someone else's process. Part of it is about pulling together their own layers of information to be able to input and participate effectively in the future. And I guess that's not the only reason why you want to do spatial planning, but that was a key driver for this particular project around developing, I guess, our own tangata whenua led and driven spatial layers for the Western Bay sub-region. And so one of the starting points was looking at, what do we know currently? So I've only got two maps here of the current state. So as a highlight, it's just a snapshot of our current place. So our maunga, our awa, our tahuna or estuaries, our moana. In addition to, I guess, our built environment. So where our marae are located, I guess our marae are the heart of our hapu. And so I think to highlight with spatial planning, these maps are cool, but they only show the current state. It doesn't actually show where we'd like to be. So what does the sub-region look like for us in 50 years' time or 100 years' time? I guess for us, we're multi-generational. And so we're still in the we're currently in the planning stages. We know roughly what we might want to gather. And by we, I mean, this is guided by and led by the Combined Tangata Whenua Forum. And so one of the starting places, something I've pulled together to help to guide the gathering of information that will be taking place next year is a set of very draft outcomes. The reason for this is just to help to when we are collecting information or asking our Māori land trusts, hapu, iwi, post-settlement governance entities if they were to see these outcomes, it's to leave it to them to describe or illustrate what each outcome might look like for them, because each hapu and iwi are different. Each marae community has different aspirations and needs, likewise for the post-settlement governance entities. So once again, we will leave it to each of the iwi hapu, I guess our tangata whenua reps, to help to guide what that might look like for each of them. And also we're leaving it up to them to decide what information gets shared. So this links again with peers kōrero. You know, this is a project that's driven by tangata whenua. They'll be gathering the information and choosing what gets shared or not. So I guess, I mean, I guess I can use some practical examples. I don't know what this might look like in the future, because once again, the process will be guided by our forum reps. So as an example, I can speak from my own hapu. So I don't know if you can see my little pointer. So Ngāti Tūhiki is a hapu of Tapuika. And these are our two marae here, Makahai and Tawaki Pito. And so even for us in a very localized space, this term, our marae communities are connected to social health services, education, sporting facilities, where practical public transport. We can easily have a session between us to describe what that might look like. And some of it's quite straightforward. I mean, our marae has water and wastewater, Tawaki Pito has limited infrastructure. And so we know that Tawaki Pito may have different aspirations even to Makahai Marae, even though we're neighbours, literally neighbours. Makahai Marae has aspirations to Papakainga as well. So you can see on a small scale, we need to have some really good, solid, deep discussions, and let alone, as well as duplicating this across each of our marae. Another example is Te Whenua. So I'll use Tapuika as an example. So it's easy for me. For us, we have treaty settlement land as well. So it's a mix of some residential dwellings as well as forest blocks. And that's quite very similar to other iwi. So Ngāti Ranginui, for example, and their settlement has a lot of residential properties within Tauranga Central. So as you can see, like each iwi will have completely different aspirations in the future for their treaty settlement lands. And then the other big one, Te Manawa, so this is around, the changing climate. So thinking of for our marae, say for example, Whakaue down here, when you start to layer information such as areas that may are prone to coastal inundation, so I guess the risk of coastal erosion, sea level rise, it helps to guide those discussions. Well, what's the future for Whakaue marae, and what happens to all the urupa that are located close to these coastal areas? So as you can see, the challenge is huge. But what I do like is that we will leave it up to each iwi hapu Māori Land Trust to determine what that might look like for them. Okay, so that's the aspiration. Onto the reality check. First one was building understanding and trust. So as an example, I mean, we had a workshop back in July, and this was to demystify spatial planning. The reason for that is spatial planning has become a big buzzword. So everyone uses like spatial planning, and what's the latest other buzzwords, co-design. So it was important for us to demystify what that looked like in practice, using normal words that regular people can understand. That was really important. And trust. What I observed when I joined I guess the forum, is that there was a misconception. Well, I guess it is trust around, this thought that we were trying to, this is smart growth, trying to package up 800 plus years of history in addition to 50 to 100 years worth of aspirations into a single map, which we know is absolutely impossible. And you just can't do that. So I think part of it is around building trust of why we're collecting this information. What are what's the drivers? How will it benefit? What does this mean for iwi hapu Māori Land Trusts? Limited capacity and resourcing. I touched on it before. Each of our reps some of them are employed, some are volunteers, some are dealing with resource consents every single day from 3 different councils. And so it's like for us finding ways that they can help to drive, be involved with this project without burning themselves out. And we know this is it. Also the challenge of co-designing the process. So, you know, if we're taking a bottom-up approach, we're letting our forum members help to design how this process might work, and we'll have some form of, we would like to give it a good crack of intensive engagement, particularly with Māori land trusts. And that takes time and a lot of energy, which links to our next one is how do you have meaningful engagement with tight timeframes? I mean, our timeframe for at least to help to start inputting into the sub-regional spatial plan is a 1.5 years away. So of course there's that tension between trying to do it the right way while the wheels are spinning very fast and competing priorities, which is the other thing. So as I'd mentioned, our reps are also involved with other smart growth projects. I mean, we've got the housing action plan that Pio and I are trying to help implement at the same time. The freshwater limit setting that that Pia had alluded to, and quite a few are also involved in either reviewing or writing new iwi hapa management plans. Involved in district plan reviews, we've got Tauranga City Council and Western Bay doing theirs at the same time at the moment. And I know quite a few are developing their own climate change strategies and plans. So, I mean, particularly for the Taurawa is the one heavily involved in implementation of Te Ariki Pōpū. So some ideas of what we need to, you know, help make this this dream a reality. Parallel processes, so working smart, particularly if we're trying to engage on similar things in the same area. So this is from a smart growth point of view. We've got multiple projects and just making sure we're not overburdening our iwi with engagement. Clear communication channels, so just constantly making sure we're providing information on a regular basis. Te Pio and I release a regular, e-pānui, just to share what the forum, you know, the forum as a whole has been up to and what we've been up to. But also finding different ways to collect information. I guess with COVID, you know, the idea of having Māori-based workshops isn't as easy as it used to be these days. So we're still working things out, and it will be iterative. Of course, having some agreed protocols on how information's collected, collated, who holds the information, what information gets shared. That will take time to develop at the same time. We do have support, thankfully, from our each of our councils, so our Takawanga teams, or those who have close relationships or who oversee or guide relationships with Māori, so including the Māori policy team. And the big one for early next year is working at how we support engagement with the Māori land blocks. So across the sub-region, there's a truckload of Māori land blocks is probably the non-technical term of describing it. And the other one, which I'm really excited about, is building capability along the way. So one thing I picked up is quite a few of our forum reps are we're interested in learning more about GIS mapping, how you do it. And so we've been trying really hard to link our reps with GIS training. I'm keen to hold a wānanga next year. I quite like the idea if the reps want to start holding their own information and mapping themselves. I mean, that would be amazing. So that was a very quick overview. Here we go. A very quick overview of our project. And it's a bit of a hard one because we're still working out our approach, but at least I can share what we're sort of looking at doing and some of the challenges that we need to be navigating over the coming years. Any questions?
First of all, thank you, Alva, for that wonderful presentation. It's good for us to learn what's happening behind the scenes and the work that you've been doing in the Te Pakiti space. We've heard a lot about the work that's been going on, so thank you for sharing with our councillors today. I'm going to open up the floor and I can see Te Tari's hand. Kia koe Te Tari.
Kia ora, Alva. Thank you for a very enlightening and a very important presentation. And obviously you're all over this, and I'm pleased to see you there, because your level of knowledge and capability, I'm sure, is warmly welcomed by everybody in this particular space. But in terms of smart growth and moving from west to east and across central, and obviously you're crossing tribal boundaries there, and so there's all sorts of things to share in that space as we engage, as you say, with landowners. And I'm of the view that certainly with spatial planning, our people need to be ahead of the game. They do need to be not just being told, they need to be prepared for their ability and their capability to participate in real terms. I know you're probably aware of some science research programs that have been done in Te Arawa at Ohunamutu, for example, where Canterbury University engaged with them to develop spatial planning tools that the iwi could apply and get ahead of the game before town planning comes to them and says, this is where it's going to be done. So, I mean, that's the ideal situation, preparing our people with these tools. So thank you. I'm a really support, having this GIS wānanga to build that capability, and because I'm of the view that our people from our even pre-European in their holistic modeling, we're GIS practitioners. Everything was multi-layered, so really there's a historical sense to our own GIS system that we had. And it's nice to see you bringing it up. But my question really is, how are you connecting with a number of the other projects that are happening across the region and maybe in the Motu as well, to get some additional sense of information on how you might progress this? And I cited the one at Ohunamutu, but also, there are tools being developed around well-being tools. How do we make decisions in respect of our own well-being as a people, social, cultural, historical, and so on? So these are decision tools, and I see this as a decision tool in getting us ahead of the game. So what's your comments, Alva?
Firstly, I love it, and I will look into the wellbeing decision tools. So far, the initial networks have been within the smart growth realm. So mainly connecting or understanding where each of the councils are at in the first instance, what projects they've got coming up. The next layer I need to be doing is working out with like NZTA, Painga Order, because I know they're all embarking on housing specific or Māori land specific projects. So I think that's part of the work that myself and Te Pio to an extent is understanding who else is doing stuff. So we're not stepping on each other's toes or duplicating effort. But the wellbeing decision tools I'll certainly look into. Actually, I might touch base with you, Te Taru, for some links.
No problem.
I don't appear to have any other questions from the councillors. So back to you, Ella. Thank you very much. It certainly helps with joining the dots, and I'm sure there'll be plenty other dots to be joined up. I can even see the relevance of the presentation that Pia's done, and the relevance around the ISP, where that's going to have to be applied there as well. So thank you, Alva, for your presentation today.
Have a good day.
Okay. We are running a bit behind time, so I'm going to go straight into the next presentation, which is Papakainga Housing, and our presenter is Victoria Carroll. Are you here, Victoria?
Kia ora, yes I am. And I've been listening with interest. It's been an interesting couple of presentations this morning. Morena.
Morena, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Finally made it. Would you like me to start?
Yes, please.
Okay, tēnā koe. Tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Ngā mihi kia koutou ngā kai kōrero. Kia koe pia mō tō mahi whakahirahira mō tātou te iwi Māori. Tēnā koe, me koe Alva. Pai ki te rongo ki a koe, tēnei ata. Kia koe hoki kataraina me tō tīma. I want to do a shout out to Gina as well. Tōku whanaunga. Tēnā koe, Gina. I see you're on the call there somewhere. I see a couple of old faces too. I shouldn't say old. I'd say people have been committed and in for the long haul. So I do want to also acknowledge our councillors Paula and Andrew Von D, who back in the day used to own the Welcome Bay pub. So I know he can pour a good beer. So morena kia ora koutou, ko wai tēnei, ko mangatawa te maunga, ko rangatawa te moana, ko tamapahore te tupuna, ko Wikitoria Carol ahau. Thank you for the opportunity to present this morning and share just what's happening in the housing space. I wasn't quite sure how detailed to go, so I've gone with a general overview and have left more time at the end so people can ask specific questions, and hopefully we can get a bit of a good dialogue going there. So I have provided a PowerPoint and Shari has that. She's going to control that for us, and I'll just indicate when to change the slide because I haven't uploaded anything. I better just clarify what hats I'm wearing today. So I'm wearing all the hats today, people. So today I am here speaking on behalf of Manawa Community Housing Trust. That's the community housing provider that is Ngā Pōtiki's housing delivery entity. That's Manawa Community Housing Trust, and I'm the general manager for that trust. I just recently stepped down from the Ngā Pōtiki board this year so that I could go into this role, and we are now effecting our full housing strategy. So that includes the construction program for the next 3 years, and we're well and truly on our pathway there. So I'll share some of that with you towards the end, Matamona. And then I'm also a director of the Manawa development arm. So, and also wearing my Kainga Ora hat today, so you can ask me all those crunchy questions at the end if you like. What's Kainga Ora doing? And great, I would really like to have, apart from this opportunity to share information with you, Kataraina, if there's an opportunity for us to continue some mahi into 2022 to make sure that our region is maximising the opportunities in the central government space. So I'll flick up, what have we got here? Our PowerPoint. Shari, can we go to the second slide? Thank you. So I'll cover off, I just want to give some context. You already know the context, but I always like to start with context just to remind ourselves why we're doing this mahi. Talk about what some of the central government drivers are, in particular Kainga Ora and Maihi, through MHUD, MB. There's so many entities now across the housing. Navigating that space can be a bit of a challenge, but there are strategies that are being developed to make it more user-friendly. We can talk about that. And then some future directions. I just want to focus on the future directions of in terms of housing, and I'll use Ngā Pōtiki as a case study and just cover quite lightly what's going on there. Hapai? Okay, so slide 3. Kia ora. Well, we know that the statistics for Māori in the housing space are all negative. Home ownership is falling. That's a real concern for me. It's a big one. Because as we know, whānau wealth growth is connected to home ownership. So the housing affordability issue across the entire continuum from transitional and emergency housing right through to home ownership, Māori are experiencing all of the negative statistics, and those are rising, not decreasing. We are probably in the worst housing experience that we have been in our known history, and our waiting list, the housing register, we have over 50% now on the register of Māori and Pacifica. So there's 22,000 people waiting on the list, and that's just for social housing. We don't really have any super accurate information around the renting households, Māori renting households, but we know that they are struggling. There's lots of different quantitative information out there, and all of it is telling the same story, which is that rents on average are increasing, household family incomes are reducing, and where our whānau are experiencing all of those negative aspects that come with that, the overcrowding, the health issues, the transience. And so we really do have to, this has been an ongoing problem across successive governments for many years, and this is where what has resulted. I really wanted to emphasise the importance of focusing on home ownership for whānau Māori. And it's because of its link to wealth growth, which is once a whānau, if you ask any economist, how do you measure a whānau's wealth, the first thing they're going to ask is, do you own your own home? And even if you haven't paid that house off and it's still a liability because the mortgage is so high, over time that is going to become your main asset. And as the equity builds, even if the mortgage is still being paid off, you can still use that for other things like the loan to set up your home business, or the better car that's going to get you across town to the better job. So those things are really relevant. And I'm a real advocate for pushing for home ownership. And my general overall view is that if we can improve whānau income, we can improve a lot of what's going on in the housing space. Some of these targeted and overregulated programs, or some of the overregulation in housing, I feel is potentially can backfire, and I think there's not enough emphasis on getting household incomes up. It's all focused on building houses, and we have to remember that we still have a whole poverty experience that needs to be navigated out of, and increasing affordability in housing helps, but it's not going to it's not the solution. The solution is to actually increase whānau incomes. So I'll go to the next slide. What we've seen then as a result of the housing crisis we're in is a new national policy statement on urban development, which basically sets out the requirements or the obligations of council to now have a role in enabling additional affordable housing. That's great. That means that our councils, where before they were reluctant to get in this space, now have directives to become involved in this space. It's really important because they are a key player in delivering these strategies in terms of land supply and making the framework within which we consent our housing an easier process, not a different, but an easier process to navigate through and be supported through. Kāinga order legislation, new legislation that's come in, I love it. It sends clear messages and directives to kāinga order to partner with Māori. It's a big emphasis in the Act. And of course, myself and my other two colleagues at the Kāinga Order Board, we trot those sections out every now and then when we need to. Because we are dealing with a culture shift in an organisation that once was Housing New Zealand. And I think we have a very enthusiastic and experienced board that's very keen to promote what the Act would like us to promote. And so that's fantastic, gives us a great framework to work within. In terms of the partnerships, certainly seeing a lot more urgency and enthusiasm and willingness within central government to partner with Māori to produce better housing outcomes. Not only that, but also encouraging Māori business to be supported through Kāinga Order's procurement processes, formulating lists of preferred suppliers, preferred service providers. All of that's part of what Kāinga Order does and is promoting internally. I'll just give you an example of quite a large partnership that's just been signed off, and that's with Ngāti Toa, and that was to facilitate also the return of all of the Kāinga Order, what was Housing New Zealand housing, and they'd all hear back to them and to support them in that. So that's about 1,500 homes, and have been working closely with them. I think there is a scheme where we've seconded staff. But those are the kind of relationships that we really need to be getting into to support iwi at that scale. But also they're very keen to start working with individual Māori land block holders. So from small scale projects like papakainga mate moana, so 4 houses plus, right up to very large subdivisions. And this is where we should really be accessing, central government alongside our councils and regional councils, and putting forward, I think, a case for regional program work. Absolutely, especially if we want to secure the resourcing that we need for the next few years to affect some of these housing outcomes. Okay, I really would not like to see us trying to reinvent the wheel and try to re-understand what the aspirations are. This regional council already has led some amazing work in the papakainga housing space and was the key, one of the key councils involved in the joint agency group when that was first established, which you'll remember, mate moana, back in the day. And that got some really good results, and I don't think it's been assessed properly either. I've seen the recent reports back on what was achieved through that program, and they're inaccurate. So you need to get the accurate information. There are 17 papakainga housing plans already waiting to be affected that are sitting within that program, that were prepared through that program. Those are the trusts that did not get funding, but we had worked with them and prepared papakainga housing plans with them. Those plans are supported by regional, Tauranga, Western Bay councils and the Māori Land Court, so they're worth starting with, I reckon. I've mentioned the same to Tauranga City, and I have contacted our lead at Kāinga Order involved in building those Māori land collaborations and partnerships, and have got him in front of key staff at Tauranga City, and I'd like to do the same with you too at the right time when you're ready, mate moana. So there's lots happening in Kāinga Order at the moment. You'll know that there's 3.5 billion that was enabled additional borrowing. 1.2 of that was set aside for the Infrastructure Affordability Fund. We're definitely very supportive of the applications that came through from our area. And you'll be aware that there are large purchases that Kāinga Order is interested in and has affected already. So they are very, very keen to start becoming more of a developer. And of course, to do that, land supply is a big issue. Timing's a big issue. Time constraints. You'll be aware of the Urban Development Authority. That's interesting. So Kāinga Order will have new powers, or has powers, to provide consents for certain projects. It's very interesting watching that formulate from behind the scenes, and it's interesting to see some of the wider implications of having yet another consenting avenue. I hope you've been able to keep hold of your staff there, mate moana. I hope they have all fled to Wellington. Apologies. An unexpected side effect of that strategy is cannibalisation, which I don't necessarily support. Because we all need our good staff. You need your good staff there. Tauranga City, we're experiencing as a result of these new times, it's really hard to keep good staff. It's becoming a very competitive space out there. And then, of course, we have Kararaina Calcott Crib, who's leading out Maihi, which is the MHUD Māori housing arm. They were approved 730,000 in funding, and that's to be used specifically for Māori housing projects. So whether that's papakainga or urban papakainga or residential subdivisions, from repair and maintenance right through to new builds, that fund covers a whole range of activities. And they're also interested in program work, which will be very helpful for us if we were to do a linked up strategy. Interesting what Pia was saying about the one door through to council. Single entries are always so much easier, so long as once you've gotten through the door, the hosts behind the door have got themselves sorted and know where they are triaging people when they come through. We're experiencing similar things with the Mai-He objective of we've changed it from a single entry doorway to all doorways will lead you to the right entity. So you can approach, you can go through Kāinga Order, TPK or MHUD, and you'll come to a convergence at some point where all of those agencies then get together around your proposal and start figuring out how they can enable it, which is a great mind shift from the old days where you basically had to really push for everything. I'm finding when I'm putting my other hat on and dealing with MHUD, it's obvious that the clear directive is to get things done, get into it, get things done, and help whānau as much as possible through the process. So we've just recently concluded a large proposal to kick off our rental housing strategy. So that engagement with MHUD, from my personal experience, was absolutely fantastic, probably the best it's ever been. So that's a positive. Really excited and enthusiastic staff to work with, where they are being very transparent and working through financial modelling with you. There's a lot more support to putting those proposals together, so that's great news. There are some new programs coming through. You would have heard of the Progressive Home Ownership Program. You heard of that? Now where has that come from? That originally came from MHUD. The Progressive Home Ownership Program is an interesting story. I remember when Phil Twyford was first appointed the Minister of Housing and had launched Kiwi Build. And I phoned him because I still had his cell number from when he was in the opposition. And we used to talk a lot. So I rang him and I said, look, you've got Kiwi Build, but you're going to need something like a Kiwi Buy to go alongside it and complement that program. Otherwise, you're not going to get the people that need to be on it, who need to be assisted through those processes of home ownership. And that was right back at the beginning when Labour first came in. It's taken some time for them to get their heads around why Kiwi Build is not necessarily working. And it shows the maturity of the organisation to go back to look at that, to redo things. So what they've done is they've come up with not necessarily a redo, but an additional support, and listening to the community housing provider community out there and responding. So the progressive home ownership was something that the community housing provider network kept pushing and pushing, and finally it's been accepted and is a program now. So any group can come up with a progressive home ownership program, present it to government and be assisted through that. Basically, it's a loan setup where the government will provide lending to an organisation, and that organisation has to use that lending to achieve additional housing. Your proposals have to be well thought out. You do have to know the number of homes you're going to build, how you're going to work with family, the additionality that your project brings, the innovation, all of that sort of stuff. So Ngā Pōtiki was in quite a good position when the PHO opportunity came out last year, because in 2018 we had set up our own iwi shared equity scheme, and then in 2019 the PHO program opened and we applied through that program as well for additional funding to get more whānau into housing. So what we're seeing are shared equity programs coming through. We are now also, Ngā Pōtiki, or I should say Manawa Community Housing Trust, are working on a long-term leasing program, which is absolutely necessary given the very, just the speed at which our property market is growing. So the scheme we set up in 2018 as a shared equity scheme is no longer achievable because the market is just too hot. It would necessitate us subsidising homeowners nearly half of their house and land package costs. So that doesn't work anymore in this setting. So we've gone back to government, told them that. They need to know these things. They need to make sure that the parameters they set in their programs will work in the real world. And the setting of 600,000 for a house and land package under that program just wasn't going to work anymore. So long-term leasing is what we're looking at now. We've tested that in a financial model, and it's a much, much more affordable scheme. It's not exactly home ownership, but it is secure tenure for 99 years. The lease and house together is worth at least 400,000 for that whānau once they own the full equity of that. They can sell that. We've worked with the banks to accept long-term leasing as good security. So you can securitise that and raise your mortgage to build your house. So the whānau builds the house and owns it, and the iwi provides the land and an affordable rental, and we also provide the subsidy to help them buy the house. So some really interesting schemes coming up. We will know early next year if our long-term leasing model works, and we're also happy to share those models. So at the right time, we can come back and kōrero a bit more about that. So I just want to finish off just with with an example of what's happening out at Ngā Pōtiki, just to give you an example of what's happening in a housing space at scale. Still very much interested in papakainga. I think that all should be revived. I love the joint agency group approach. I don't know what councils are doing now in that space. I do know they're interested in reviving it, but my work more so these days has led me more into large-scale projects, and it's just been a natural progression there. But if I can take you to slide 5.
Oh, hang on a second. I've just got to turn off my sound.
Kia ora. If I could take you to slide 5, Manawa residential subdivision. This is a treaty settlement. This is a piece of treaty settlement land that Ngā Pōtiki has developed into a residential subdivision in Papamoa. I can, Shari, if you can just put up slide 6 and I'll just talk to it. Thank you. So this is a piece of land. What we're looking at is just an overall sort of master plan of Manawa. What you're looking at, the grey sections, that we have basically 240 sites in there. Up to 30% is kept aside for Ngā Pōtiki tribal members. Those are all the red, blue and yellow sites. They've been pre-allocated. They are owned by Manawa Community Housing Trust. You'll see in the top corner of stage 3 to 4, 3 and 4, I think it's 3 to 5, there's a big yellow square in there, and that's for kaumātua housing. So there'll be 20 houses in there. So in total, it's about 80 houses all up in this subdivision that will be owned and managed by Ngā Pōtiki. Further north of this block is another piece of land that Ngā Pōtiki own, and that's been master planned for another 100 houses. And then on some RFR lands, Ngā Pōtiki is currently master planning, that block's about 100 acres, master planning between 600 and 800 houses on that. So once you start looking at the potential of treaty settlement land, I know we're also talking with, there's potential for, land swaps, there's potential for all sorts. Really just need to get in the room and start talking to the right people. And so we would see a lot of what's coming for Ngā Pōtiki to be very collaborative with regional council. We've got stormwater issues we need to sort out. I know Blue Haven have too. And we're working with them to bring something to council. We're finding we're having to engage so much more with our local council as well. And it's great to have the commissioners there so we can engage and actually get some decisions going. It's fantastic. Within the Manawa subdivision, we also have planned larger reserves than normal because of the social and affordable housing component within it. we made our reserves a bit larger because we're seeking higher densities on the sections where we are going to be placing rentals. We're looking at some townhouse designs. We want them to be really, really nice. They've got to suit the development itself. We have design guidelines that we have to honour when we are building our buildings. We've just signed commercial terms for a supermarket to go in, so we are going to be completing our commercial retail service centre there. Punareo's to be built. We've got plans for that in there, so we are building in a lot of amenity into this. We've also, of our own volition and at our own cost, there was no profit to it apart from the values that underpin the development around manakitanga, whanaungatanga, rangatiratanga. So whanaungatanga, manakitanga, ngā pōtiki want our whānau in Manawa, not just ngā pōtiki whānau, all whānau in Manawa, to be able to experience the cultural landscape that they're in. There are plans for a cultural app so that people know what they're doing and they know where they are. We've built a private walkway, boardwalk from this subdivision right through to Simpson Road, so whānau can connect to the beach and their wider environment. So I really like it. I'm quite proud of it. It was heavily influenced by Hobsonville and the urban design principles that underpin that development, and very much reflective of the Ngā Pōtiki culture. So street names, obviously, the design, where sightlines are, through four roads and looking up through to the maunga and key features. All of that's been thought of in this development. If I can take you to slide 7, just show you what some of the house designs, townhouse designs we are looking at. This is the design that's interchangeable. So it has two 3-bedroom units on the outside and two 2-bedroom units on the inside. So you've got 4 3-bedroom and 4 2-bedroom, but you can interchange them, and these are the kind of plans we're looking at. The walk-ups, we're looking at for small spaces like a 2-bedroom, more innovative design inside. Once people are living in smaller spaces, those spaces actually have to be designed really, really well for them to have a good quality experience of living in your space, and that adds to your well-being, doesn't detract from it. So things like built-in furniture, people haven't thought about this. There are things that funders will have to get their heads around and accept as good practice. So in small spaces, versatile furniture, built-in furniture, and hacks that you can bring into a small space that make you feel a lot better in that space, not cramped up. Other things like looking at where we should have fencing outside of townhouses like this. Our thinking is no, we should just create a nice big green space, an area for kids to play, an area for barbecue, so whānau in these townhouses can gather, and smart landscaping, so you can still have privacy in between. So these are the kinds of things that we are thinking about now when we are looking at large-scale projects like this. A completely different kind of headache, but good to have. I like to explore what's working internationally out there for people. So, and just on that note, I'm not an advocate for transitional housing. I don't believe in that. I don't think it's accepted internationally as a solution. It's just a quick fix or a quick band-aid at this stage. The real solution is permanent housing for whānau, so that they can be part of a community, their kids can integrate, get to school, and parents can catch a ride to work because they're part of a community, that sort of thing. You're not going to get it with transitional housing ever. Right, I'll flip down through to slide 9, and that's just, these houses are being open tomorrow. So these are 6 3-bedroom townhouses in the Manawa subdivision, and we have our whānau moving into those tomorrow. That's going to be so cool. They're going to be in them for Christmas. Interesting context with COVID. We've had to ensure that all of our tenancy management, property management practices have a COVID overlay. You know, you imagine you have to do your house inspections if there's a lockdown, how do you do that? So all of our tenants' houses, we supply Wi-Fi to. We cover that as an organisation, so we can keep in touch, and each of them have a tablet so that if we need to, we can just direct if there's a situation where they need to isolate and we can't come in, they still have access to us. And our Manawa Community Housing Office is situated within Manawa, so whānau have access to the support they need, and we're just a walk down the road from them, because all of our housing is in here in the subdivision or nearby. I thought about what I'd like to just leave you with a couple of thoughts before I finish off, and was this: if there were key things or tools that could be used, what should we invent, what should we not reinvent? And I'd just encourage the council to consider utilising the joint agency group approach again, to set a strategy for housing for the region, for housing for Māori, like we did with the joint agency group. And that gave everyone a strategies and a plan and resourcing to work through what realised around about 150 houses, I think, in the end, through a 5-year program on Māori land. So that's what I would encourage regional council to do. There's so many other things as well, but I'll leave it there. I know I probably have gone over time, but I will leave it there. Thank you, Matamona.
Thank you, Victoria. What a fabulous presentation. Look, and so much respect for you. You know, it made me reflect on the journey from back in the day with Western Bay, where JAG was introduced, and where you've come to today with the establishment of Manawa and all those wonderful houses that you've built out at Papamoa. I need to come and have another look. I have been once, but that was in the early stages. I need to come and have a look and at the progress. So yeah, totally respect the work that you've been doing and continue to do, the information that you've given us. I'll take up the invitation to have a korero with you. I'm just kind of getting back into the housing space myself, but I can see, you know, the mahi that you've progressed, and I think it's absolutely amazing. So thank you. I'm going to pass over to the councillors to see if they've got any questions before we let you go. Councillor Iti, I see your hand raised. Kia koe.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. O tira kia koe. Victoria, thank you for that presentation and congratulations on your mahi e hoa, he mahi rangatira. I'm just really impressed with all of the various innovative ways that you're looking at meeting what would appear to be insurmountable challenges that Māori face with regards to home ownership. So no reira he mihi tēnei kia koe e hoa. I just got a quick question because I know that property development is notoriously a risky business. You always hear about property developers going bust, and so I'm wondering, how are you and your business protecting yourselves and your clients against what, you know, could be seen as really uncertain economic times? We have inflationary pressures, there's skilled labor shortages. What sort of protective steps are you taking to protect yourselves and the whānau you work with? Kia ora.
Kia ora, Toi. Thank you for that. Yeah, there's lots of measures you can take. I mean, I was talking to a colleague the other day. We have like 5 layers of accountability through our decision making when we set up our systems. So I think the first thing is that you want the right people alongside you. So when we started our journey to do Manawa, we spent a lot of time, but maybe 12 months, trying to find the right partner to partner with. We didn't know very much. We certainly weren't developers. We learnt along the way. So we spent 12 months trying to work out a partnership with an organisation. And then we realised actually they were overcomplicating it, and actually they were sucking as much as they could out of it, and that would not have been a good deal for us. You do need to surround yourself with good people. You do need to do the due diligence. You do need to look through things properly. So we spent 12 months in that engagement, and it was a hard engagement to then break off and say, no, this isn't going to work, because once we realised what we were actually going to get out of it, the benefit was too one-sided. And then when we realised that actually development is about, it is always managing challenges, but it is done in stages. So in terms of the money piece, it is possible to just do it in stages. You don't have to have all of the money, and that can be structured quite easily. I think we should do a workshop on something like this. I shouldn't go into detail, but we should do a workshop, because this is where we do need to be thinking. We need to get good people around us. And the thing is that pool is only going to get smaller and smaller. So we should really, as iwi, when I say we, start working across and using similar teams, I would say, rather than competing for them. So half the consultants that we work with are also working with Manawa. You know, it's a small pool. So you get the right people around you, Toi. You need a really good board. You need to be very clear in your vision and not backpedal from your decisions. So you've got to make sure that they're the right decisions, because these are big financial decisions. And what I find is I think iwi are really good at it. I think we do it really well in terms of bringing the innovation, the sense of place, the ideas that we bring into our developments. You just won't get them anywhere else because they don't think like that. So each one is going to be different. Get the right people around you. You need a bold board, and get really smart people around you. And maybe at some point, Regional Council might want to host a workshop on all of these things, and then we can share in more detail some of these ideas.
Tā pai, kia ora, Victoria. Tēnā koe.
Councillor von Bartelsson. Councillor von Bartelsson.
Thank you. Welcome, Victoria. What a fantastic example you have proven to be for iwi. You are a guiding light, and I'm sure I must have had something to do with it in the early days. So, great to see you performing so well. This is a wonderful model, and you are a leading light. And I think that your experience and it is massive, and I've been following what you've been doing for the last few years. You're on the right track. You've found, you've got out. You had the guts to get out of the partnership when it wasn't going right for you, and as you said, that's never easy. So well done on that. I do know a little bit about that, and commend you for it. Please, let's. You've made the offer to actually help other iwi groups to do the same sort of thing. This is not a competitive environment. There's room for everybody. If we can embolden and embrace iwi in the way that your hapu is working, then fantastic. The Bay of Plenty will be the richer for it. So thank you and well done.
Thank you, Andrew. I've got Councillor Thompson and Councillor White.
Tēnā koe, Victoria. Yeah, I just ditto everything that Andrew just said about you. You're a legend. So absolutely well done. Can I just say that this approach by mana whenua to placemaking should be the approach we all take. And sadly, I'm not seeing that happen in the non-Māori space. So, I mean, you're putting people in place at the centre of your decision making, and that to me is absolutely everything. So congratulations, well done, fantastic work.
Councillor White.
Yeah, kia ora, Victoria. Just to echo the voices of our previous two speakers, and when you got Councillor Andrew D, as you introduced him in your starting point, making those sorts of comments about it, then it's action on the ground. And that's what I know the Councillor von Daddelson likes to see, as we all do. walking the talk and making it happen on the ground. So well done. I just want to also acknowledge the fact that in the Papakainga space, we have a lot of land trusts and corporations now getting into this mix. And I know within Taurawa, that is happening. And they are now looking to participate more vocally, but also more resource-wise into this space. And as Councillor Thompson said, taking hold and building this space rather than waiting for the system to build it for them, but being knowledgeable about how to work that space and being smart, which is the sorts of things that you talked about, really. So congratulations. And the whole notion of sharing, I'm involved in the housing areas and the issues around in Te Arawa at the moment. And I know these conversations are happening in a mix of spaces, but the desire is to be smart, being intelligent about what we do, bringing our resources into the space, and actually also building our capability, not necessarily around numeracy literacy, but around behaviour, attitudinal shifts and changes. So well done, Victoria. Just wanted to say that to you.
Kia ora, thank you for that, councillors, no, much appreciated. Yes, would love to come back and talk more on these issues at another time in next year.
Thank you, Victoria. Okay, councillors, I'm mindful that we haven't had a break, and I know we've gone over time just a little, but I'm going to suggest that we take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back, and our next presenter, God, I hope you don't mind, Scott. Well, we'll just take a 10-minute break, and then we'll have Scott present to us. Okay, well, that means we come back at 11:30, thank you. Okay, so I've just got to make an announcement because we're live streaming. The meeting will adjourn for 10-minute break and reconvene at 10:30. Actually, it's an 8-minute break now. Please note that the live stream recording will still be operating during the break, so can all meeting participants turn your microphones and videos off during this time. Thank you. Kia ora everybody, we're back on board again. Kia ora everybody, we're back on board again. I'm going to hand to you, Scott. I know you're with us. So without further ado, Scott, I'm going to pass to you to speak to us about the Rangiuru development update. Queen Scott.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. Thank you very, very much, everyone, for the opportunity to come along. I'll quickly introduce myself. Te tipu mai aho ki Tamaki Makoro, ka mana kiki te manga, te pūhua te awa. Ko Tauranga Moana, te kainga e Nāianei. Ko Hamilton Tokoinga o whānau, ko Scott Tokoinga, Tokoingawa. He tāhuhu rangapu aho mō Quaysides. Nō rewa, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. This is an opportunity really for me just to try and give a quick update on where the Rangiuru Business Park is progressing. We think it has significant opportunities for the local catchment and for the local iwi as well. I'm just going to see if I can share the screen and then I will presentation up. Okay, so hopefully that's come up on the screens. Not too sure if that's gone in the right format at the moment. There we go. So for those that don't know, most of you, for the councillors, are obviously Quayside's very, very familiar. We've been a council controlled organisation now for 30 years, very, very successful in a lot of ways, with a significant asset base, which is there to support the full well-beings of the council. Probably more importantly for me is my team. We've recently just gone through our process of, I guess, te reo immersion, and we finished with the Hurio Marae. We were all able to practice our pipiha, and so it's nice for that team to be able to, I guess, have that as part of their journey. The key piece I wanted to do to talk to you about today, though, was just really the progress that we are making on the Rangiuru Business Park. We obviously appreciate that Rangiuru has a very, very strong and important connection for not only the people of Tapuika, but also for a lot of people through Te Arawa as well, in terms of not only a mountain, but also an ancestor as well. And for those that don't know, the Rangiuru Business Park is approximately 150 hectares on the Tauranga Eastern Link, and really, really important in that it connects both those important industrial areas of Tauranga, but also out to Whakatane and to Rotorua as well. So really, from a Bay of Plenty connection, is very central to the development of land. We've been very, very fortunate, I think, just to hear from Victoria previously, around the need for affordable housing. That's obviously one of the critical pieces that we require here in the Bay of Plenty. The other one is then industrial or job opportunities to support those people. And so for us, the Rangiuru Business Park is critical in that regard. The need as well with us is to try and make sure that what we do produce out of Rangiuru is really, really a high quality industrial land. So that it is able to meet that broader live, work, play philosophy that Smart Growth and others have put into play for this area for a long, long period of time. The vision for us, look, with regards to Rangiuru, is we want a modern, high quality, vibrant, connected industrial development. We are blessed in the sense that it is surrounded by both the Tauranga Eastern Link and the East Coast Main Trunk Line. But really for us with Quayside, this is an opportunity to do a business park development correctly and to do it right. The nature of Quayside, for those that don't know it that well, yes, we do invest into land and we do undertake development, but we also invest in businesses. And so really the opportunity for us, particularly through that first part of stage one, is to really set the scene and make sure that we get Rangiuru developed correctly into something which will give the right form of benefits to the community as a whole. and really to acknowledge, I think, particularly that last point, you know, the environment and the kaitiaki or the guardianship of that land that's been there. It's been a food area for a long, long time for those people in the Tapawika rohi, and you know, we want to make sure that we pay appropriate tributes to what is happening there. I guess this is a very, very busy slide, but it'll probably tell you the journey of Rangiora anyway. It goes back a long, long time, back to 2003-04, when Quayside first purchased the land. The first plan change took place back in 2006-07. And of course, it went through the financial crisis and have sat on our hands a little bit all the way for things to improve. The Tauranga Eastern Link has been developed through 2012 to 15. And there's been 2 subsequent plan changes that were done by Quayside to try and ensure that we could optimise the best land development that we could out there to the east of Tauranga. Critical for us as well was the Provincial Growth Fund funding, which came through and was announced in 2020. And now, if you look at those items that are in yellow, you know, we have earthworks commenced, and if those of you that do drive up and down the Tauranga Eastern Link now, you will see significant earthworks and machinery on site at Rangiora, and that's very, very exciting to see. The work on the interchange is commencing as well towards the tail end of this summer, so that's the on-ramps and off-ramps you will see commencing in there. And we're looking at stage 1A, so 1A is about 15 hectares, title for that to be put forward in probably about 24 months time, and then another 12 months after that there will be another development of another 15 hectares. So we're looking to try and bring about 15 hectares to market every year, is the way that things are taking place through those first couple of stages. And whether it's stage 2 on Quayside land or on other land will depend on who else is participating out there at Rangiora. But basically, if you look at stage 1A and 1B, there is 30 hectares or thereabouts, 30 to 35 hectares of new industrial land available for the market in that 2 to 3 year time frame. Second aspect for us, of course, in terms of the development of the park is also the relationship that we have with iwi as guardians of the land and of the area. We have a very long history of engagement in here. Obviously, right back at the start in 2005, a cultural impact assessment was prepared with Tapawika. During that quiet period, we'll call it, through the GFC and post, there was obviously lots of engagement backwards and forwards with various iwi on the different progresses, on the different projects that we have and the different plan changes and the different consents that were required. But really, we've had to step that up quite significantly in the last 12 months. There's been a lot of work that Quayside has undertaken, particularly again with Tapawika. Part of it for us as an organisation was really understanding their journey as well, understanding the aspects of importance to them as a people, so that we went up to the top of Rangiora Mountain and understood the past sites and other things that were up there. But we've also gone and put an agreement in place with Tapawika so that we can work through the developments of the land. And that has included little things such as the earthworks that are taking place. We are bringing earth in from inside the rohi where we can, and where we are taking fill away. That is actually going up to support one of the local Tapawika Marae in terms of the redevelopment out of their land as well. So we are working very, very closely with them. We're also conscious as well that the talking point of Rangiora is broader. The benefit of Rangiora is broader than just for Tapawika. So we are going out and talking to other iwi through the region around the progress that we are making on Rangiora as well. And recently we've just taken Rawari Waru into the team as well, so he's engaging with us on progress with regards to the work that we are doing, just to make sure that if there are other aspects that we are missing, then obviously we can do that in the fullness of which it is intended. I guess the big question for us is the why. Why is Rangiora important as well? The property economist estimate is around 4,000 jobs potentially that would come through full-time employment once the 150 hectares at Rangiora was developed. And appreciating that there's a push on the other side of town for Tauriko to expand further, but Rangiora is roughly the same size as Tauriko is today in terms of that. So you're looking at about 4,000 jobs. And then obviously on top of that, jobs during construction as well. One of the things that Quayside is really, really keen on is the theming of those industries. And that's really to try and make sure that we put the best foot forward for Rangiora, making sure that we put industries which we think are befitting of the Bay of Plenty, befitting of high quality jobs into Rangiora. And so really working, particularly in that first stage 1A, that's really our opportunity to make sure that we put the best foot forward in terms of the types of industries that are there. So real focus on food manufacture, processing, horticulture, logistics, high value, clean industries, so that we can maximise the value, I guess, not only for ourselves, but also for the whole of the region in terms of those jobs that are created. The park itself is multimodal. There is access to the East Coast Main Trunk Line. There is the bus, there is potential for the bus routes up and down the TEL, but there's also the cycleway that sits up and down there as well. And working with the different stakeholders across the region, both the regional council, but also Western Bay and different iwi forums as well in terms of just advancing Rangiora. So for me, that was, I know it's a very quick presentation, Madam Chair, but I thought, right, it's an opportunity for us just to give you an update in terms of where Quayside is and the work that we are trying to do with local iwi in terms of getting a fuller understanding of what Quayside is trying to achieve with Rangiora. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Scott. I'll open up to the floor and ask councillors if they've got any questions for Scott. Councillor White.
Can't let you go without a question there, Scott. Hey, you mentioned Rawiri Waru has been appointed there and his role. Can you just clarify more about what that role is?
Yeah, so look, Rawiri is going to work with us across a number of different projects, but really what we're trying to do here is we recognise that through this process, we do need to engage quite wide and quite deeply in some cases with different iwi, and Rawiri is there to try and help us to make sure that we do that and we get the protocols right when we do those processes as well. And so, he's working with us on not only this project, but a number of other projects that we're also doing just to give Quayside additional support in that space.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Winters.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Winters.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Scott. Great snapshot of your progress to date. Superb. Hey, have you got a timeline for the interchange to start construction?
Yes, we do. So look, that stage 1A that we're talking about, releasing those sections to market, that has the interchange in place there as well. So look, that is the district plan that we put in the plan change we put through from plan change 72. Basically identified, because the TEL was there, that the interchange is effectively lead infrastructure for Rangiora.
Yep.
And so the earthworks, I think, towards the tail end of the summer, while they're working on the landform itself at the moment, towards the tail end of the summer, you will see some embankment work start to take place. But the interchange is anticipated to be ready for that first stage 1A, so that's about just over 2 years away.
So do you manage that interchange, or is that NZTA project you've just been given the funds to proceed?
Look, it's an interesting one. It's actually our project, but it's got to be done in accordance with NZTA guidelines. So,
yeah.
So we're taking the lead on it. We're doing the engagement with the engineers. We're then going back to NZTA to make sure that those engineers' designs are in accordance with NZTA's design manuals, etc. But basically, we are doing the lead on the charge and the time frame on it.
Okay, thank you.
To appear to be more questions from councillors. So Scott, I want to thank you again. It's great to see that the work that you're doing alongside Tapawika. I know your comments that you are discussing with Tapawika around supporting them in their own land development. And I know some of their marae are actually doing work as we speak. So look forward to an update around that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time.
Madam Moana, can I just butt in here briefly, completely, just had a call, had a talk to Chris Ingalls. The rain warning in the Eastern Bay's been elevated to 200 mils, and appears there's preparations for sandbagging being made on our Rangataiki river banks, and I've just got a call from a farmer concerning that. Over some issues there, so I just sort of socialised that with Doug and Kevin and Toy, and possibly maybe Chris or maybe Mark Townsend might give us a bit of an update at the end of the hui anyway. It's a bit of immediate significance. Thanks.
Thank you. And just a reminder, we do have a strategy and policy workshop following this, so that may be the opportune time to do that, Councillor Clark. I'm just moving on with our agenda. Well, to our reports. Our first is our Chairperson's report. I'm going to take the report as read, but I just want to pass to Kataraina for a couple of highlight points that you want to raise.
Kia ora, councillors. What the Chair and I thought, with your indulgence, is that we've got some really enthusiastic students here on the Zoom waiting to present to our councillors about some of the work they're doing. So we thought we would hear from the students, and their report is part of the Chairperson's report. There's 5 students, and then following that, hear from Stephanie McDonald, who's going to present on the Youth Involvement Project. And then we can come back and take any questions or feedback from the Chairperson's report, if that's okay with you, so our students can get on with their mahi. So without further ado, we have 5 students who have prepared a very brief kōrero about the work that they're doing themselves, what they're studying. Our students are Akira, Anaru, Te Rua, Sama and Te Waikāmihi. And our first student to speak to Komiti Māori is Akira McTavish Huriwai. Hopefully she's on the line and ready to rock and roll.
Tēnā, can you hear me all right? Oh,
yes.
Awesome. Okay, just tēnā koutou katoa e ngā rangatira o Komiti Māori, tēnā koutou. Ko wai o, he uri o no Waikato Tainui, Ngāti Pirou, Te Arawa me Campbell. Ko Akira McTavish Huriwai tōku ingoa. Kia ora everyone, my name is Akira and this is my second summer at Toi Moana, being a summer assistant for Te Amorangi. Firstly, a bit about myself. So I've just completed my second year of studies at Victoria University of Wellington, studying towards a Bachelor of Science, majoring in Environmental Studies and Geography. During my time in Wellington, I've had the amazing opportunity to intern for Te Hunga Whiriwhiri at Greater Wellington Regional Council and a bunch of extracurriculars like being on the Wellington City Youth Council. I am so grateful to be back at Toi Moana for my second summer, as I truly loved my experience last time. My current role largely consists of supporting the regional leadership group with coordinating their COVID response for the community. This is such an amazing space to be in, and one that I'm very thankful for the opportunity to be able to interact with different government agencies and iwi leaders across the region, as well as seeing the decisions and mahi that go behind preparing our communities for coping with COVID. Before I pass on to Anaru, the next student, I would just briefly like to thank you all for this opportunity to learn from Toi Moana. My previous experience significantly impacted my future aspirations and actually led me to a change in my degree path to align more with the careers that I saw here at Regional Council, the work being done, and now where I want to end up. I have gained so much valuable knowledge during my last experience here and have already enriched and expanded my kete since starting here in November a month ago. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Over to Anaru.
Tēnā rā koe, Kira. O tira kia tātou, ko hui hui mai nei. Rongi te kaupapa whakahirihiri ka wanganui a tātou, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Tuatahi, tēnei au e noho whakaiti ana, kei moi te mana. Te mana o koutou ngā kai kaunihira o Toi Moana, tēnei kamihi ake rā kia koutou katoa. Really is a massive privilege to be part of this kaupapa, this initiative, this wānanga that we're having between us. Hoi anō koe ahau, i te taho tōku pāpā he uri tēnei no te mautere o Matakana, i te taho tōku māmā he uri no Ngaitama Whariua, no te rera tikahia pā, me pare hauraki hoki. No koanaru pāma tēnei. I'm not one to reflect on I guess on the numerous kaupapa initiatives that I'm involved in, but for this purpose, I consider it to be quite a neat opportunity and privilege to share some of the mahi that I've been getting up to. First and foremost, it is a privilege being part of this organisation as a summer intern. Currently undergoing some mahi at Ngaitama Whariua, actually, at Te Rere Atikahia, alongside some whānau in regards to just assisting them with some projects and mahi regarding funding for environmental projects that they have out there. On top of that, I've been doing some mahi with Ngaitarangi Iwi as well through their Te Rangi Hau Rangatahi Leadership Forum. Currently also an intern for the Social Link organisation based at the Collective. And on top of that, studying towards my Bachelor of Social Sciences degree, double majoring in Maori and Indigenous Studies and Political Science at the University of Waikato, but based here in Tauranga Moana. Just some quick reflections on my time within this internship. I think the space is really new to me, so it's a lot of new learnings, but at the same time, I'm just real grateful to be surrounded by so much wisdom and knowledge in the process. So in spite of the new learnings, it really is a privilege, and it's kind of made me almost reconsider my academic endeavors and pursuits as we kind of near the halfway point of this internship opportunity. But hoi anō kia tātou katoa, mihi ana kia tātou. Ka tuku ai au te mana, te rākau me ki tōku hoa o Summer. So I'm going to pass the mana over to Summer and leave it to her. So nō reira, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa, kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you, Anaru. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko takitimu me mā tātua nā waka, ko maua me mākio nā maunga, ko te awa nui me waiawa nā awa, ko Ngāti Rangi nui me whakatohia nā iwi, ko Pirirākau me nā tamahau oku hapu, ko Poutu te Rangi me Ōpapi nā marae, ko Ake me Hudson nā whānau, ko Summerbell tōku ingoa. I'm really passionate about enhancing the mana of our people and our land and our waters by upholding te tiriti o Waitangi. I'll always advocate for equitable resource distribution in all of our communities. I understand the consequences of disconnection across all levels of life, from being disconnected to self and culture, disengaged from communities and whakapapa, and living as separate to te taiao. Although being here today, I'm testament that through strengthened connections, adversity can become empowerment. My mahi pōtai allows me to focus on positive youth development across various levels of engagement and always inclusive of a diverse range of rangatahi from all socioeconomic realities. I've studied youth development at length, both in a formal and informal capacity. It's become a lifestyle that I can't get enough of, and I'm always seeking to provide opportunities for positive youth development. My tertiary education pōtai covers the health science behind mental health and addiction outcomes in Aotearoa. I'm thankful to be learning through Te Pūtahi Atoi at Massey University, which ensures a significant portion of my learning is framed in te ao Māori and strengthens my ability to incorporate Mātauranga Māori into our contemporary world. I'm really grateful to extend on my learnings through Toi Moana, and I feel privileged to be walking alongside the Youth Involvement Project to strengthen and lay a foundation for effective rangatahi partnership with Toi Moana. I also would like to express my gratitude and appreciation for the mahi being undertaken here at Toi Moana and for the welcoming and inspiring environment that surrounds us as tauira. Particularly to the members of Komiti Maori, thank you for your commitment to our region and to our people and for creating space for our rangatahi to be connected. Noho ora mai, ngā mihi mai oha, kia ora te roa.
Tēnā koe sama, mauri ora kia tātou katoa. Hei te matatanga me mihi atu ki tētahi o aku pakeke, kia koe te taru. E noho mai ana I roto I tēnei rōpū hei māngai mō tātou o te aroa o Rotorua. Tēnā koe. Ko wai tēnei, he uri tēnei no ngā maunga o ngongotaha o Tongariro o Ruapehu, no ngā wai karekare o te Rotorua nui a kahungata momoe. O taupo nui atia, me te awa tupua o Wanganui, ko te rua Wallace tuku ingoa. I was born and raised here in the beautiful Rotorua, and fortunate enough to go to Te Kurakaupapa Māori o Ruamata, now currently studying at the University of Waikato, doing a Bachelor's of Environmental Planning, and look to graduate there in June, July next year. My time here at Toyohoma, at the Regional Council is split between you guys and the Māori Policy Team, and also with Te Papa Ahurewa, who is a planning, consents and policy rōpū here in Te Arawa, just recently started in June, July this year. My passions lie within the taiao space, and I feel that I am responsible for the environmental spaces that I spoke about in my whakapapa. So my mahi will always be around the recognition and the care for those environmental areas, but as well throughout Aotearoa and the world. Tēnā koutou. Kia koe te wai ka mihi.
Tēnā tātou katoa, ko te Waikamihi Lambert tēnei e mihi atu nei. He uri tēnei no Ngāti Awa, no Tūhoe, no Ngāpuhi hoki. Tika rā me tuku mihi kia koutou ngā kaiwhakahaere, ki ngā kai kaunihira o tēnei kaupapa, kua whakaai mō mātou ngā tauira ki te uru mai ki tēnei kaupapa whakahirahira, koenei te mihi mai oha kia koutou katoa. Hello everybody, my name is Te Waikamihi. I'm 19 years old. I'm currently studying towards a Bachelor of Science in Marine Biology and a Bachelor of Arts in Māori Studies and the Māori Language at Victoria University of Wellington. This is my second year as a student at Toi Moana. Last year I was working alongside Te Amorangi while I was still attending Whakatane High School. And this year I am in the science team with my awesome boss, Gina Mohi, and we work on Mataranga Māori science. So my mahi looks like analysis of mahinga kai reports, of Māori monitoring tools, and it's also about making sure any mahi that me and Gina put out together is rooted in te ao Māori tūturu and encompasses tikanga, whakapapa, mana Māori, and all that good stuff that us as Māori love to hear. I also work closely with Kura Paul Burke and Joe Burke. I became a licensed freediver at 17 through them. So I've been working for them for about 2.5 years, and I've worked on the Ohiwa Harbour mussel restoration. I've done kina mapping, and I've taught a freediving course for the hapu of Ngāti Porou to enable them to be able to sustain their rohe moana in rural areas. And our most recent project was species collection over at Whakaari to test for toxicity levels post-eruption. So yeah, some really amazing and inspirational mahi that I get to do here at Council, and I'm extremely honoured. On behalf of me and Anaru and Akira and Sama and Te Rua, I would like to thank all of you so much for sharing this space with us. And yeah, that's us, but he mihi nui rawa atu kia koutou katoa. This is an amazing privilege and we are just happy to be here. So yeah, thank you.
Anui te mihi kia koutou. Look, bursting with pride of all of you and the mahi that you're doing. It makes me feel that our future is in good hands, and our success, and we are on track with our succession planning. So thank you very much to all of you that have spoken to us this morning. Stephanie, I see you, and I'm going to hand over. Oh, Aroha Mai, Councillor White, I can see your hand raised. You're on mute, Te Taru. Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me? Ngā mihi nui, ngā mihi aroha ki a koe ngā tauira, ki a mata wehi. You make an old fella feel very proud. And I mean that. You are articulating with clear focus, clarity, and with a love for what you do and for your people. And for that, I want to say it's a privilege to hear from you. You know, and like Mati Moana, you shine a bright light on our future, because succession is always a big thing for us. And when we look at the challenges ahead, I'm absolutely so proud of you all. So I just wanted to say that, Mati Moana, while I felt hot about the moment, okay? I really, really enjoyed it. Kia kaha koutou.
Stephanie, we'll hand the rako to you.
Tēnā koe, Madam Chair, and tēnā koutou councillors. I must say that's a really hard act to follow, and we are delighted to have Summer as our tauira for the next couple of months. Called Stephanie McDonald tōku ingoa. I'm the Community Engagement Team Lead, and we've been asked to share a little bit about the Youth Involvement Project. So in addition to the summer students that we have across Council, this is an update on the work that has been happening in recent months. And I'd like to invite Danny Manderson, who joined our team in August, to share her screen. She has a brief presentation to share with you the work that she has been doing recently, and also involving Summer since she started with us in November. Danny, over to you.
Kia ora, Steph. Ko maunga tautari tōku maunga, ko Waikato tōku awa, ko Tainui tōku waka, ko Ngāti Raukawa tōku iwi, ko Ngāti Koraki kahukura tōku hapu, ko Pohara tōku marae, no Tokoroa hau, ko Danny ahau. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Kia ora, Madam Chair, kia ora, councillors. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Danny Manderson. I joined the Community Engagement Team in July this year, and I have been working with the Youth Involvement Project Group. I'm just here today to show you some pictures of our youth rōpū to support our piece that's in the Chairperson's report. We had 56 applications from rangatahi all across the Bay of Plenty, over half identified as Māori. As you can see from this word cloud, we had a wide range of iwi represented. What that means is the larger the word, the more people who typed it in as their iwi affiliation. The first meeting we had to establish the group was held at Te Kuero Marae in Rotorua. Beginning the journey, kanohi ki te kanohi on a marae reflected what the rangatahi themselves wanted and valued, as well as councils focused on enhanced engagement with Māori. We are connecting young people with the work that the Bay of Plenty Regional Council does. At Te Kuero Marae, nets were set in the Utuhina stream nearby, and Kieran Miller from our team led an ecological discussion about their contents, freshwater habitats, and freshwater management in the Bay of Plenty. We will make the most of opportunities as they arise for young people to lead or share their expertise within our rōpū. Our walk to a nearby Ngā Whā geothermal spring allowed two of our rangatahi, Lahaina and Matariki, to share their experiences and knowledge from living in Whakarewarewa village and how their whānau utilise their geothermal resources. COVID restrictions has changed the way that we plan to engage with our rangatahi. We have been using online tools such as Zoom, Messenger, Google Jamboards to host meetings and have discussions online and work collaboratively on projects. It's important for us to provide leadership opportunities to the members of our rōpū. We have a rotating chair, so each meeting is hosted by a different member of the group, and they are involved in the entire process, so they're planning the agenda in the meeting and they run the meeting with our support. This group would advise the development of a youth engagement plan, work experience trials within council, and a problem-solving event next year. Kia ora. I'll hand back to you now, Steph.
Kia ora. Thank you, Danny. The group met as recently as last night, and I was privileged to sit in on that meeting, and they're progressing their youth engagement plan beautifully. And I think that's testament to the organisation and support that has been provided by Danny and more recently Summer. We'd welcome any questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Stephanie. Do I have any questions from the councillors? Councillor Eti.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. In the absence of Councillor Rose, I'm the next youth adjacent councillor at the table, so I think it appropriate that I mihi kia koe, Danny, me Summer for your work. He mahi rangatira tō koutou mahi, and to echo the sentiments of Te Taru earlier, watching this amazing display of youthful, engaged talent is so heartening. We face so many challenges. So to see people like yourselves coming forward, stepping forward with your education, with your passion, and engaging with us validates what we're doing. And it's really important that we continue this mahi with regards to succession for this council, because you guys are the future. And hoi anō he mihi tēnei kia koutou. Kia koe hoki, Steph, for your mahi and the mahi of staff and leading this initiative. I know myself, Councillor Nees and Councillor Rose have been involved, but really you staff have been the driving force of this. So huge bouquets to all of you. Tēnā koutou. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Thank you. And yes, just reiterating, thank you very much, Steph. I hope that we get regular updates around what's happening with our youth across the region. I think it's very important that we stay in tune with what's happening with youth across our whole region. So thank you very much for the presentation. Just in closing for the Chair's report, I'm going to ask Councillor Crosby, and if he could provide a kōrero around wearing his local government chair's hat around the mahi that local government has been progressing with Māori, and in particular in our report around the Water Services Act and the mahi that Stuart and his team have been doing in the local government New Zealand team. Kia koe, Stuart.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Good morning, everybody. No, sorry, good afternoon, everybody. Apologies for being not overly prepared. I've just come back from Wellington, so I'll just quickly go through two areas. One, in fact, what LGNZ is doing, and then on the national scene, what's happening, and particularly in the R3 water space and RM reform. So LGNZ is actually going through quite a major restructure where we're looking to set ourselves up to be fit for purpose moving into the future, quite a new dynamic future. And to that end, part of our work is around diversity, equity and inclusion in terms of a framework. And that's built on 4 of our leadership pillars, which is whakahono in terms of connection, whakamanawa in terms of advocate, whanaki in terms of development, and whakauru in terms of inclusion. And that's led to a number of work streams, particularly with Tamawata, which is our Māori elected member group, which is growing and getting into quite a lot of work as they move forward. And that's based on actually some initial policy work done by Arapeta Tahana a few years ago to lift Tamawata upwards and be more proactive in the local government elected member space. And so a number of those work streams are around our own staff's cultural competence and diversity, embedding Te Ara Māori in our sector, and also making sure that council's cultural and well-being is grown and developed. I won't go into a lot of detail around that. Also, we have another cohort called Young Elected Members. And again, that's a group of elected members that are growing. And we have a lot of young rangatahi involved in our young elected members, and they're presented to us actually at our last National Council meeting their kaupapa and what they're hoping to grow and develop and articulate over the next few years as well. Then if we look at the national scene, of course, we're just in the midst of a massive amount of reform. Some of them you know about, like Future for Local Government Review, Three Waters, RM reform, climate change reform, emergency management reform, waste minimisation reform, a lot in education, a lot in health, as we all know, and of course the public sector leadership framework as well. But yesterday I was at a Three Waters meeting. I'm on the Three Waters steering group. I've been on it for about 15 months now. And you hopefully all know the history of that. I guess a quick update. I wrote to the Minister Friday a week ago and asked her to delay the first bill that was going to go into the House in terms of the structure of these water entities and effectively how they're going to operate. That bill has actually been made public as an exposure draft yesterday afternoon. I'm assuming it's on the DIA website if you want to have a look at it. There are no surprises in it. It actually does follow the proposed structure. But alongside of that are three streams of work that was also announced in late October. And this was around areas that both National Council, many of our members and iwi are not happy with the proposed structure of the Three Waters reform. So to that end, three working groups have been set up. One you're probably quite familiar with, which is really around governance, accountability, etc. That's led by Doug Martin. And I've already met twice and are looking for alternatives to the model around those areas. The second one is around RM reform and how it connects to the Three Waters entity, how district and city planning links to it, LTPs, regional policy statements and annual plans all linked to it. And also the third one, which we discussed yesterday, was around rural water supplies. Up and down New Zealand, there are thousands of rural water supplies that were developed in a bespoke arrangement with the council of the day. And how do they relate to Mata Arawai, the new independent water regulator, to the water services group entities being proposed and to councils? And of specific interest to this committee is obvious around Marae in terms of their water and wastewater. So that particular working group is developing a terms of reference as to what they should look like. And we discussed at length about Marae and how they should be, one, considered in the first instance in this whole Three Waters issue. And of course, our council, Bay of Plenty Regional Council, is quite well advanced in parts of this in the wastewater space. But if you look at it from a national perspective, it is a huge issue. And everybody, and I mean everybody, is determined to make sure that one, there is safe drinking water on Marae, and of course, environmentally appropriate wastewater and in fact, stormwater disposal as well. So that is not yet complete, but we hope to have people populating that working group from iwi up and down New Zealand and local government and councils, etc., to work out how rural water supplies are going to be impacted, particularly from Te Mata Arawai and these proposed three water groupings up and down New Zealand. We decided that it should be a separate piece of work. It shouldn't be amalgamated into just rural water supplies, i.e. farms, etc. And so again, that's a piece of work that's happening. With regard to RM reform, Minister Parker is very engaging in this. And again, there is MFE, probably the lead ministry on that. And they themselves are also developing an engagement program with iwi up and down New Zealand. Future for Local Government, again, they're well down the track. They've put out their first piece of work on that, their first paper, and they're now starting to develop their thinking around another paper that they have to have out later next year. And again, we have our own Antoine Coffin is on the panel for that from Tauranga Moana. And what we've been trying to do is to make sure is that as they develop their next piece of work, that all the conversations going on up and down New Zealand from iwi, councils, the broader population are noted, and it gets back to the panel, and the panel's thinking gets back to all those other groupings. So it's an iterative process. So in other words, what we don't want is at the end of the report, which is coming out later next year, it's a surprise. And in fact, everybody's been able to contribute to it. And the panel are very engaging in that space, and DIA are supporting that. So Chair, that's a very quick update where we are. It's a very busy and complex operating environment. Everybody's stretched to the max in terms of capability, capacity. The timing and the deadlines for some of these pieces of work are very short. But we have a government that is on a reform agenda, and that train left the station a long time ago, and it's critical that everybody is involved in having input into all the reform process that are going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stuart. And it's been expressed before, the value that you bring to us and being the chair of local government and you sitting at our table. So thank you very much for sharing that korero with us. Just looking at my screen, are there any questions from our members? No, there isn't. So thank you very much, Stuart. That was greatly appreciated. I'm mindful, members, the time is ticking along. If I can just have a mover and seconder for the chair's report, please. Councillor White, Councillor Winters.
Madam Chair, I do have a kaupapa regarding the chair's report that I'd like to cover. I'm happy to do that after the motion if you'd like.
All right, thank you. Will do. All those in favour, raise your right hand. Carried. Thank you. Kia koe toi.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. If I could direct your attention to item 3.1.1.1. There's a few points there. Perhaps a couple more than I'm going to make right now. But of our agenda, it's titled Erosion Control. I'd just like to talk to this a little bit. It's a kaupapa that's been going on for over 2 years now, Madam Chair. In fact, since November 2019, concerns raised by the Tūhoe post-settlement governance entity, Te Uri Taumatua, with our relationship, with regards to the relationship protocol with the Regional Council and TUT. Our river and drainage staff have actually not been able to do any work upstream of the Ohotu Bridge. I know most of the councillors are aware of this. The one site in particular that is mentioned in today's agenda, which is Waikirikiri Marae, and it's Urupa, it's cemetery. Now the hapu, Madam Chair, of this marae and the mana whenua of the surrounding area is Hamua. Me kei a koutou te mana whakahaere o tā rātou whenua. They have the mana to say what happens in their area, not only from a cultural and tikanga perspective, but also from the fact that they are the landowners of the surrounding area where our staff have indicated that works need to happen in this instance. And Madam Chair, they are also the marae and the hapu. It is their marae and the urupa that is at risk of being washed away in the next event. And I'm sure with the announcement of the weather that is heading our way, they are looking up the valley at the river with quite a lot of apprehension. Now, Hamua, as the mana whenua, have been very clear with our staff that they wish for them to get on with the mahi. After the 2017 flood, the Regional Council, our council, has invested a substantial amount in the rock work directly in front of the marae to protect the marae, and according to staff, the needed work to maintain that asset and lower the risk for the marae is actually a relatively straightforward and inexpensive exercise. But 2 years on, Madam Chair, even with the mana whenua repeatedly saying, come and do the work, with our staff are still being directed to stand down. I would like my fellow councillors to cast their thoughts back to our recent Treaty of Waitangi workshop, where His Honour Judge Harvey was very clear in his view, bar kaitahu, that post-settlement governance entities have a mandate, not the mandate, and that generally hapu have the final say when it comes to kaupapa in their immediate area and jurisdiction. Hapu are the mana whenua. Hamua has been explicit that Te Uru Taumatua do not represent them. They have officially withdrawn from the post-settlement structure, and because of this action, they were sent a letter by Patrick McGarvey, a board member of Te Uru Taumatua, stating that because they had withdrawn from the post-settlement membership, that they would, amongst other things, not have a say in the management of the river. Now, as far as I can ascertain, there's no legal basis for this statement, a statement that was endorsed by Te Uru Taumatua, and it's my genuine concern, Madam Chair, that this council, via the relationship protocol, is being used to enforce the stance. Now, I understand we don't want to be the meat in this political sandwich, but our subsequent inaction has inadvertently favoured one party over the other. So I'm confident in my reasoning on this kaupapa as being reasonable, Madam Chair. Hoi, I would like to request a risk assessment and comprehensive report on Waikirikiri Marae and its urupa with respects to the flood risks and possible mitigation options available to us. I would request that Hamua be involved in this risk assessment. Also, I would like to request a report regarding the relationship protocol between the Regional Council and Te Uru Taumatua to gain an understanding as to why this document has been able to be used to stop work for 2 years, despite the wishes of mana whenua and the assessments of our river and drainage staff. I would request that this committee, Komiti Maori, receive this risk assessment and report at its next sitting, and that we deliberate and give direction on next steps as per the purpose and role of this committee to guide and direct Council's obligations to Māori. Koe nā tōku kōrero e te tia. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Councillor Iti. I know Chairman Leader's hand is up, but before I do go to Chairman Leader, Councillor Iti, this is obviously a bigger discussion than just being laid down this morning, obviously. And so, as the Chair of Komiti Māori, I am going to suggest that a wider conversation takes place that includes yourself and probably the Chair and our CE. We have a further discussion around this. It's not waylaying what you are discussing, but it's something that's come to the table this morning, and we probably need to be having further discussion around the tono that you've made, and let us work through, probably with Fiona, through staff as well, and Doug as the chair. So I'm just going to leave it there and just pass for Doug's comments at the moment because he's hand up, and then I'll come back if I need to. Okay, out for you, Doug.
Miti Moana as chair. Yes, this is a really sensitive issue. I concur with the suggested way forward that you have. As Toi knows, that Paki has made representations over several years in terms of the whenua that he has got jurisdiction over. But sitting behind this is essentially the political issue regarding Taumata and Tūhoi. I have sympathy for the haukainga there in the mana whakahaere, but at the end of the day, in the recent times, the regional council staff has essentially been trespassed from taking activities on in that waterway. Stephen Lamb, through the Chief Executive, is the initial point of contact, and Fiona is well over this issue. But currently, the relationship at the Chair and the Chief Executive level is with the post-settlement entity. But you are right, Toy, this issue has to be resolved. I don't see it being resolved in the short term, and I think Mati Moana's suggestion on the way forward is a sensible one. I don't have a problem with a brief report coming back to Committee Māori in terms of the issues that we face, but I've just called Fiona in and she might want to comment in terms of the ongoing dialogue that we have, especially with Kirsty on these issues.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Yes, we have a relationship protocol, and so we have Stephen Lamb as a relationship manager. I am not sure if Councillor Iti, if the memo that was provided to you following the last Komiti Māori meeting has been shared with Kirsty Luke, so I'll follow up on that. But Chair, I'm very happy in terms of the action that you have suggested in terms of myself also meeting with the Chair and Councillor Iti and reporting back to a future Komiti Māori in terms of next steps.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the other councillors? Thank you. Well, we're going to move to our last agenda item on our meeting because I am conscious of a back-to-back meeting we have today. So I'm going to go to 9.2, our Toi Moana Komiti Māori 2021 highlights. I'm going to take the report as read, and I am going to ask for a mover and seconder to receive the report. Councillor White, Councillor Neves, thank you. All those in favour, right hand up. That's the majority of you. Carried. This concludes our Komiti Māori meeting. I want to thank our presenters for making the time to present at the hui, and to members of the public who have been watching the live stream. So in closing, if I can move to Councillor Iti to close our meeting, please.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. Ai me whakakapita tātou hui me te karakia. Kia tātou katoa te atawhai tō tātou ariki, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhina tahitanga ki te wairua tapu, ake